Welcome to this meeting of Babergh District Council Cabinet. I'm Councillor John Ward, leader of Babergh District Council, and I'll be chairing the meeting. May I first of all remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use, that you do not interrupt other speakers, that if you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. And additionally, we will be using e-voting for this meeting on the modern.gov app. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you'll be deemed by this council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you're also consenting to being recorded by the council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. I'll now move to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Jessie Carter, Councillor Daniel Potter, Councillor David Busby and Councillor Derek Davis.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary, other registrable or non-registrable interests by members. Are there any to declare? No. Item 3, paper BCA 2326 to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of November 2023. So, starting at page 5 on your agenda pack, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9. Sorry. Councillor Davis.
On page 7, paragraph 49.11, it keeps saying tables, and I think it's meant to be tablets, just as a matter of, otherwise it reads rather strangely.
Yes. Yes, tablets.
A bit pedantic.
We'll get that corrected, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Right, so page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, and finally page 12. So may I have a proposer for the minutes, please? Councillor McCraw. And a seconder, Councillor Sally Davis. And right, we'll now conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. The vote is now in progress. Thank you, members. That is 5 votes for. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. The minutes of the meeting on the 7th of November have now been confirmed. Item 5, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received.
Thank you. Item 5, so that was item 4. Item 5, questions by councillors.
None received, Chair.
And item 6, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There are no matters referred, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, forthcoming decisions list. Cabinet members, do any of you have any comments on the forthcoming decisions list? No? Okay, thank you. Moving on then, item 8 is paper BCA 2327, financial monitoring quarter 1 for 23 to 24. I'll now introduce this report as the Cabinet Member for Finance, Assets and Investment. I'm pleased to introduce report BCA 23-8 to Cabinet, the Quarter 2 financial monitoring for this year, covering the revenue and capital financial performance for the period April to September 2023 for both the General Fund and HRA, starting on page 13 of the agenda pack. highlights the major year-end projected variances that are expected compared with the budget if current trends are maintained. The actual outturn at the end of the year will be higher or lower than the amounts currently predicted, depending on performance over the rest of the year. So for the General Fund, Appendix A contains the Q2 financial monitoring. Page 18 contains the background, which briefly summarises the challenges and pressures we continue to face. These do remain a problem, but there is hopefully light at the end of the tunnel, with the CPI inflation now down to 4.6%. In the forecast position, you'll see that the headline for Q2 is that we are forecasting a year-end deficit of £900,000, which is £922,000 worse than the budget surplus of £22,000 that was predicted, and also a further deterioration on the position reported at Q1. The National Pay Award and the results of the Pay and Rewards Review have added pressure to the staffing costs. And at Q2, overall salary costs are projected to be 2% over budget after use of the contingency, with some costs in public realm being reallocated to Babergh following a review of staff and asset utilisation. The recently announced increases to planning fees will take effect in year, reducing the deficit to an extent, and we will see the effects of this in Q3. As usual, page 19 summarises the variances for the service costs, income and funding, and pages 20 and 21 show the detail of variances for each service. The largest single variance is on planning income, as it was last time, but this has reduced by and the planning income has reduced by £420,000, and that is a slight improvement, however, on Q1. This is still being offset by vacancy savings, so that there is an overall adverse variance of £375,000 for the Development Management Service. Other significant changes from Q1 that have contributed to the worsening position are an increased adverse variance for corporate resources, smaller underspends in customer operations, strategic policy performance and improvements, and housing solutions, and increased costs in governance and civic office, and public realm overspends, and these are for the reasons stated in the report. The reserve movements are shown on page 22. The capital programme is shown on pages 23 to 26. We are now expecting a variance of £9.4 million due to slippage of the A1071 roadside commercial workspace development and also the Courts Lane regeneration. The earmarked strategic investment fund will be carried over to next year, as will the Bellevue regeneration fund, although the cafe project is now progressing quickly. As the report states, with complex capital schemes, it is difficult to accurately assess the level of payments that will be made during the financial year. We should focus on whether overall outcomes are being achieved from the capital investment rather than variances against the plan for a particular year. However, we must be aware that any capital spend will incur interest in MRP costs, and so delays to capital programmes at the moment do help our immediate budget pressures. Appendix B contains the Q2 financial monitoring for the HRA. On page 30, you'll see a summary and some background information. The headline is that there is a deficit of £1.545 million, which is £944,000 worse than the budgeted deficit of £602,000. As always, the financial position of the HRA should be viewed in the context of the updated 30-year business plan. And we are now in the fourth year of 5 years when we can increase rents by CPI plus 1%. At the moment, however, we are under pressure due to inflation, which peaked at 11.1%, only falling below the 7% rent increase cap in July. Page 31 summarises the income and expenditure variances and the explanations for those variances. There is further deterioration in the overspend for building services and repairs and maintenance for the reasons stated in the report. And these are partly offset by the underspend in housing management. The capital programme, which you'll see on page 32, is showing an underspend of £1.775 million. Reserve movements are shown on page 33 and include the release of the extra £943,000 that was approved by Cabinet last month to cover the forecast deficit for the year. The Council's prudential indicators are attached as Appendix C on page 35. We have not breached any of the limits in the prudential indicators in Q2. Karen Watling, our Corporate Manager for Finance, Commissioning and Procurement, is available online to answer any of your questions. And before opening up for questions and debate, I'd first like to remove the recommendations in section 3 of the report that the General Fund projected overspend of £922,000, the HRA projected overspend of £944,000, and compliance with the prudential indicators be noted. May I have a seconder for this, please? Councillor McCraw, thank you. Right, okay. So now, over to questions. Any questions from Cabinet members? No questions? Councillor McCraw.
So the information, Chair, that you're presenting might seem on the surface to be extremely worrying, but I took note of the fact that it actually falls within guideline limits that the Council has previously set. And I think it's fair for people to ask if there's any reason for concern from what you've said. It doesn't, and from reading the report, doesn't appear that way, but could you comment on what concerns may exist in the longer term?
Obviously, the current year position for both General Fund and HRA is challenging, but the important thing is that we need to look at those trends and what it's telling us, and the impact for next year's budget setting, which is going to be the most difficult that we have had yet. We will be meeting the shortfall in the current year from reserves, but we can't do that indefinitely. We will have to make those very difficult decisions to ensure that not just next year's budget, but the medium-term position is secure for the Council. If there are no more questions from Cabinet members, other members present, Councillor McLaren, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Parker, no? Right, then we'll move into debate. Members of the Cabinet, are there any further comments you wish to make about the budget? No? Councillor McCraw.
Doesn't seem a great deal of point in arguing these realities, and our job is to deal with those. So I propose we just vote upon this. Is it for noting?
It is, yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's effectively the point. We're not actually voting on anything substantive. We are noting the facts.
We are noting the facts, Councillor, yes. And the facts are that the pressures this year from inflation, interest rates, and everything else has been a perfect storm. And also, we are reaping the rewards, or I use that word advisedly, of the continuing reductions in our support grants, which have affected all councils up and down the country ever since I've been a councillor and before. It's a very difficult position for all local authorities at the moment. But we'll get there. We have to. Right. I think we'll move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, members. That is 5 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, paper BCA 2328, which is an update on the Regulator of Social Housing Referral and our current compliance position. Unfortunately, the Cabinet Member for Housing is unable to be with us today, so I will be introducing this report on her behalf. I'm pleased to introduce paper BCA 2328, which provides an update on the Regulator of Social Housing Referral and our current compliance position. As you are aware, a referral was made to the Regulator for Social Housing in November last year regarding concerns about compliance, and that this resulted in a regulatory judgment. The CEO, Deputy CEO and Director of Housing meet monthly with the Regulator. Significant progress continues to be made in many areas as listed in section 4.3 of the report. The Regulator is pleased with our progress and continuing plans to deliver full compliance. These meetings will continue until the Regulator is confident of our return to compliance. Our compliance will be reviewed by an external auditor to give us and the regulator assurance. Members should be aware that the table in section 16 of the report shows the updated compliance position as of the 10th of November due to the timings of our earlier cabinet briefings, and we were hoping to have updated figures today. However, our system is currently down and a fix is expected to be in place by the end of the week. The updated figures will also include the position and compliance certificates, which are pending being loaded in our system. This will give members a better understanding of our position. The Director for Housing is available online to answer any of your questions. So I'd like to propose the recommendation in section 3 that Cabinet note this report, and I'd like to ask for a seconder, please. Councillor Sally Davis. Thank you. So, members of the Cabinet, any questions? Councillor McCraw.
I think it'd be helpful if we could just get a broad summary of the areas in which improvements have been made since this was last reported to both Cabinet and Council. Which areas have seen improvement and which areas still cause reasons for concern. I look at the colours, but just the basic areas, gas checks, electrical checks, and the rest. Can we get any broad direction? Just, I think, for the general public to have confidence in this.
Right. As I said, the latest figures are not available yet, but I don't know if Deborah is online, whether she can give us some indication as to that broad direction that Councillor McCraw has asked for.
Yes, good afternoon, members. So the broad direction is positive. Sorry, good afternoon, members. So the broad direction is positive. However, it would be more helpful, as members have alluded to, for you to have some figures. As was mentioned by Councillor Ward, our system is down at the moment, and we are waiting for the fix to be applied. However, we are very confident that that will be in place by the end of the week. So I propose that when we send our weekly KPI, two weekly KPI document out, that we send that to Cabinet as well as the leaders and portfolio holders for assurance. And what I also propose is that we put the updated compliance table in the minutes.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Councillor McCraw, is that?
I mean, the only reason I ask is I still see some red areas, but predominantly I'm seeing green and less red and less yellow and more green. So I just thought that was worth pointing out.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Davis.
I'm just looking at point 6.3 about the increase in damp and mould. I'd quite like a bit more detail on that if possible. Is that because we're discovering more because we're going into more houses, or is this an increasing problem for us?
Deborah, are you able to pick up on that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, so we're carrying out quarterly surveys now, and we've got an external organisation doing that for us, and one of the this is for the tenant satisfaction measures, which we have to report on for the regulator. But what this also allows us is to ask some additional questions, and one of those additional questions is around damp and mould. So these predominantly will be people that haven't reported to us before, so that's why we are seeing an increase. We've increased our contractor resource to meet this need, and we've also just engaged with Mobisoft, who are providing some software for us, which is using AI, so we can identify trends. So although we are seeing an increase, this for us we're seeing as a positive positive direction, because it means we're picking up more of those cases where people are not reporting to us, and we're able to become more proactive.
Thank you, Deborah. Any other questions? Other councillors present, any questions? Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to 7.1, which is about the contractor update, obviously the previous contractor had a whole house contract, but I was wondering how many contractors we now have in place to replace that one service that we had previously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Deborah, are you able to pick up on that?
I am, yeah.
Thank
Yes, we have two contractors, so they've got the interim contract, and then we are currently out to tender for a permanent contract. And it may be worth noting at this point that we don't have the facility to automatically upload certificates with our current contractors, which means that there is often a delay in us understanding our exact figures. However, this will be part of our new tender document going forward. So we'll hopefully have a new contractor in place from April, or contractors, should I say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. If there are no further questions... Oh, Councillor Parker, you got a question?
Well, thank you, Chair. Since you're offering, I will ask, but just because I'm a little bit rusty on this, how often are we receiving these updates, Chair? Is this a monthly thing, quarterly thing? How often are we receiving?
The regulator updates, they're at least monthly, aren't they?
Yes, they are monthly, and they go to the leaders and the portfolio holders every 2 weeks.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I noticed there's an increase in water hygiene risk assessments in November. Is that a result of the floods? Would that be water hygiene?
No, it isn't. It's because they're on a cyclical process. So as they become due, they'll show on the dashboard. And what we've had to do with water safety is get a new contractor, and that new contractor is just being mobilised at the moment.
Any cabinet member wish to make any comment through the debate? No? Okay. We'll move on then to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, members. That's 5 votes for. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Next, item 10, paper BCA 2329, the Quarter 2 Performance Report. I'll now invite the Cabinet Member for Customers, Digital Transformation and Improvement to introduce the report. Councillor McCraw.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to introduce report BCA 2329, the Quarter 2 Performance Report. That is to say, covering the period from July to September of 2023. The report is organised in 3 main sections. Part 1 deals with the 21 outcomes from our current outcome framework, and that each is split to various portfolios. It covers our achievements, if you like. The performance management has become a new crucial part, using data to inform, and that leads us to part 2, which indicates the direction of travel from that data, if you like, the key performance indicators. We do like our acronyms. And then part 3 will inform us on the plans for quarter 3, again, for each of the portfolios directorates. I'd point out that these quarters life doesn't work in 3-month chunks. Stuff merges from one period to another, and that should be borne in mind. We're going to present the report in the order it's for each directorate portfolio as it is in the report, and that would mean starting with customers, which conveniently enough is myself. I don't propose to go through every detail in the various sections, but I will note for a couple of things, we are working on digital skills sessions, but the outcome on that has been that people are accessing them, but it's not a huge number. More interestingly, live chat has seen 341 chats online since the launch in early August, and our callback service is being rolled out steadily, and 206 customers have utilised that in the last 2 months. We have carried out a resident survey recently, and also a tenant's annual report, and that's reflected within, because outcome 2 regards that we want people to be able to engage with us and empower them to do so. 71% of our 554 customers were either satisfied or highly satisfied by the telephone service, and 74% of the tenants measure satisfaction service tenants measures were satisfied with, again, with the online services. Practical matters, we've tried to reduce the length of time on the telephone options. 20 seconds cut off the message you always get, you know, press option 1, press option 2. 20 seconds is actually 20 seconds of people's lives given back. Our tenant satisfaction measure survey is mixed, I think it's fair to say. At 51% satisfaction, there's obviously room for improvement there. Now, moving to section 2, and I'm afraid this means cycling through some pages, and I do apologise for that. Direction of travel. And the one question that's always asked is how long is the average wait time in seconds? It's stabilising at a level I'd say is higher than we would like, and it's certainly higher than our targets, at about 150 seconds for a call to be answered. It also should be said we're getting slightly fewer calls per day. I notice website visits are down, as is social media reach, which I find interesting. I think there's actually a move away in some senses from social media. Finally, if I go to future plans, which is after the direction of travel, the websites have been launched. They appear to have been highly successful, and I've yet to hear any serious criticism of them, and I find them myself a great deal easier to use. We'll be carrying out a tenant satisfaction measure survey for Q3 on 150 tenants in each district, and we'll report that in the next performance report. There are quite a number of other items we've put into future plans, but those can be read in the report itself. I'd now hand back to the chair so that we can go through the different portfolios in their respective order, which would be, I think, well-being, environment, economy, communities, housing, and the health of the organisation. And then I'll close off with the performance journey about how we'll present these reports in Q3 and Q4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm happy to take any questions, obviously, on the portfolio.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. So, as Councillor McCraw has stated, we'll go through this in a sequence, starting with well-being. So, who's picking up? That's Councillor Saw.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Wood. We have had some very successful events with orchestras live in Sudbury, Hadley and Tattingstone. The Sudbury event was held with the Bridge Project students and residents from care homes, and the Bridge Project is working to extend its relationship with orchestras live. The team has a focus on helping people live independently in their own homes, working in partnership with the NHS and social providers. The Strength and Balance programme, where the objective is to reduce the number of falls and time in hospital. I'm glad to say that there are rising numbers of people participating in these workshops. We've launched a youth prescribing project with a youth worker embedded at the Holbrook Academy to help students with their mental health issues. A great deal of officer time was dedicated to planning for the Healthy Behaviours programme of Feel Good Suffolk, with its focus on weight management, smoking cessation and physical activity. The launch date for this is and was the 1st of October. Residents can refer themselves or be referred by GPs or social prescribers. It's interesting to see that the most prevalent issue is weight management. One benefit of all this work is a more effective relationship with regional and local health partners. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Saw. Next, we've got Environment, and Councillor Sally Davis will be picking that up on behalf of Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Yes, the Environment team hosted local climate action road shows in October. There were 3 in Hadley, Sudbury and Holbrook. They were also involved in one that was in Bramford, which I went to, and that was well attended and provided a wealth of useful information. I think one of the most important things is that Babergh District Council has put out a call for land to plant trees. Basically, we need landowners to come forward with land so that we can increase our tree canopy in Babergh. Currently, trees only cover 10% of the land in Babergh, and the council aims to increase this to at least 15% to help nature recover and increase biodiversity. And of course, also it has an effect when it comes to flooding. We need more trees. So the team here is working with Suffolk Wildlife Trust and the Woodland Trust, and landowners are invited to take part, and that includes community organisations, individuals, businesses and farmers. And finally, community consultation is underway for a cycle route from Capel to Copdock. This project has secured funds for design and feasibility work, so we're in the consultation phase now.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Next, Economy, and Councillor McCraw will be covering this on behalf of Councillor Derek Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I have to say I was only made aware shortly before this meeting start that I'd be covering economy, and the thing that I take most from the extensive amount of information is just how broad-ranging the economy portfolio is. Our aims are to support businesses to be green, resilient, innovative, to encourage innovation, enterprise, creativity, and there's so much going on there. But of course, a lot of this is working with other people. Those are primarily the businesses and other organisations who have also got an interest in these areas. To pick out one would be very difficult. There simply is such a vast range of them. I mean, it's 4 slides just in section 1, but it's looking for redevelopment of key employment sites. And I obviously have an interest in the Brantham regeneration area, being in my ward, but there's so many others: Vanners, Delphi, Worsted and Sproughton. Work continues in a whole variety of areas with universities and educational facilities. There's town centre regeneration being supported, but as I say, there's a great deal. When I look forward, or rather to the performance measures and the direction of travel, the KPIs, economy and outcome 10 does show a rise in vacancy rates in the town centres of Hadley and Sudbury. But that is something that we have been aware of for a great deal of time. It doesn't mean nothing's being done. Finally, plans for the future. And again, I'm just sliding through a single slide. We're delivering, or looking to deliver, ongoing Suffolk-wide business support schemes via the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. These are for startups, net zero, but net zero being a feature, and producing some form of economic growth. We're looking, after all, for better paid jobs in our district. It was interesting to note the incredible moving cinema in Sudbury, which took place recently. I just love the idea of putting a cinema in a vast big van and having people sit and watch films where they couldn't previously. I think that's a nice, innovative approach. Again, I'm happy to take questions on this, or rather ask the officers to do it for me, since they know more about it than I do.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. Moving on, next is communities. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Work continues on the development of the people and place plans, also known as the light touch neighbourhood plans, where Babergh is one of 5 pilot areas in England and Wales. There is interest in this from parish councils who want to use the process to develop a future vision for their communities. But as a council, we do need to know what role this initiative is going to play in planning, in national planning policy, or it won't get off the ground. There are parish councils who wish to proceed, but have asked us, well, what is the objective for this? And we will be asking for clarity from the Department of Levelling Up on this. It's a good initiative, but it is somewhat half-finished at the moment. We've spent a lot of time on focus on safer communities with Antisocial Behaviour Week in activity in Hadley and Sudbury, so the public understands how the protection system works, and also to raise awareness of victims' rights. Following on from that, a multi-agency meeting about how to counter antisocial behaviour due to the influx of visitors to Dedham Vale was held over the summer. We have made a bid under round 5 of the Home Office Safer Streets Fund to deal with neighbourhood crime, violence against women and girls, and antisocial behaviour. Every police force across England and Wales has been offered up to £1 million to deliver a range of interventions. We look forward to hearing about this. Obviously, looking forward, we agreed as a council a safeguarding policy. There was a very successful town and parish liaison meeting held on the 30th of October. Feedback that councillors have received about this has been very positive, and parish councils and town councils were very forthcoming with their ideas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next is housing, and Councillor Saul will be covering this on behalf of Councillor Carter.
Yes, I'm multitasking today. Vulnerable and homeless residents have secure and safe places to live. Obviously, our policy in this is to prevent homelessness, and I'm glad to report there was a 42% increase on Q1 as regards successful preventions. 18 empty houses have been brought back into use. 21 grants have been given to adapt houses to the changing circumstances of tenants as regards stair lifts and level showers. Obviously, one of our big indicators is the tenant satisfaction survey. In Q2, the question about providing a safe and secure home, 76% were satisfied. A well-maintained home, 64%, and overall satisfaction levels, 66%. As regards to the direction of travel, one of our renewed focus on our tenants is engaging with tenants who are dissatisfied with the way their complaints are handled and coming to a resolution. Our officers have held a housing improvement day to focus on increasing tenant satisfaction, and we've increased tenant board membership with 5 new tenants coming onto the board and held 3 board meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And lastly, I'll cover off the health of the organisation. In terms of achievements, these are measured against 2 outcomes. The first one, develop and implement a comprehensive people strategy. The key achievements in
Chair, there was a section I thought we might discuss, CIL, Community Infrastructure Levy, under one of the previous items, because although it falls in one portfolio, it's actually dealt with through the planning. And I wondered if Councillor Davis had some information on some sill projects that have been carried out. I apologise for interrupting.
Okay, that's okay, no problem. Councillor Davis, are you able to provide an update? No, you go ahead. I'll do mine later.
Yeah, community infrastructure levy plays a very important role, and 8 projects were awarded money from the District Council Community Infrastructure Levy in September 2023. These are funds paid to the District Council by property developers building in the district. So a total of £205,800 was awarded to a range of projects, including footpath resurfacing, improvements to community buildings, a contribution towards facilities for the disabled, and play equipment. And these projects were in the parishes of Acton, Flatford in East Bergholt, Lavenham, Boxford, Cockfield, Stansted and Sudbury. Another project was awarded over £3,000, which was another form of funding from developers, Section 106 funding, and that was the refurbishment of Boxford Pavilion. And then there are locality awards which are administered through individual district councillors, and over £4,300 was distributed from this, which included the refurbishment of squash courts at Ormiston Academy in Sudbury and the installation of a defibrillator in Holbrook.
Thank you. Right, back to the health of the organisation. That's okay. There wasn't a separate section for SIL, though. It was embedded in others.
Within communities,
Yeah.
and the problem is the portfolios do not necessarily align with the sections of this report.
And there was some embedded within economy as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of organisation.
Okay. Right, yes. So in terms of the health of the organisation, achievements, there were 2 outcomes that the achievements are measured against. Firstly, development and implement a comprehensive people strategy. And recently the key achievement here is that there's further work being done on equality, diversity and inclusion. That's progressing well. And we've also recruited menopause champions across the organisation. And in the summer we had another successful intern programme. The other outcome provide effective management of the council's finances. The key achievements recently here are we've completed the system testing, user acceptance testing and training on the new finance system. I will also make a mention, although it doesn't directly relate to either of those outcomes, one of the biggest achievements obviously in the past few months has been the adoption of the joint local plan. Direction of travel for the health of the organisation. You'll see from the indicators on page 70 that mostly everything is going quite well. I will point out though that sickness has increased a bit, but it was very low in Q1. Planning applications are being determined on time. Majors are actually being determined within 100% of majors are being determined within time. But minors have dropped from the high 90s to the low 90s%, although still well above the 70% target. And all other indicators are above targets, which is good. Looking at plans going forward, the main item that we're focusing on now, of course, and I mentioned it earlier this afternoon, and that's the 2024 to 25 budget. The pay and reward review is anticipated to be completed in Q3, and also we'll be rolling out the leadership and management development programs. And that's all I wish to say on that. So now I'll ask any members of the Cabinet, do you have any questions on what's been heard and what's been said so far? Councillor Davis.
Is Deborah still with us? Deborah, is Deborah still with us?
Is she, Deborah? Yeah, I think she is, yes.
Oh, right, okay. I've got a question about page 69, where it talks about the affordable homes built or acquired for Babergh, and we go from 2022 to 9. I'm interested in how we've gone about that and how we've done it, a bit more detail about where they were built and where the 2 came from in the last quarter.
Right, okay, thank you. Deborah, can you pick up on that? 'Cause I think most of them are Section 106 acquisitions, aren't they? Oh, Emily, yes. Oh, Emily or Holly might be up, yes. That's probably a better option than Deborah, isn't it? Holly, are you able to?
Sorry. Yes, John's right. They were mainly Section 106 acquisitions where the council purchased the units from a developer that they're bound to provide under the 106 agreement by planning. So we have had, I'm just looking at the spreadsheet now, and they are in Nedging with Norton at Jubilee Meadow, those units. And they were both bungalows.
Thanks, Holly. Any other questions? Other councillors present? Councillor Saw.
I'm interested in, I see that the number of antisocial behaviour cases received is increasing this year. Now, I know that we've been doing a lot more training on this issue, and as I said in my report, increasing awareness of how antisocial behaviour should be reported. But I was just interested in what these cases were. Are there any particular trends that we should be aware of and that we should be focusing our efforts on preventing?
Thank you. Is anyone able to answer that? It's an interesting question. Or is that something we should take away and get back to you on? I think that's... Councillor McCraw, you don't have any further insights into that?
I just noticed that the final stat in outcome 15 is that no triggers have been called for the last 6 quarters. That is a trigger where an ASB case might have achieved critical level, and there have been none for 18 months, which seems to me, I have to say, I have in my own patch a certain number of incidents of ASB incidents involving, I'm afraid to say, the introduction of security cameras, which I really never wanted to see, but it's a fact of life. But the fact that none of these have gone to trigger more serious action, I think, is at least a little bit reassuring.
Well, thanks for that. But we will get some further information and report back to Cabinet. Councillor Saul.
Thank you.
Any questions from any other members? Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted just to refer to page 70, which is about the numbers of days sickness, which the figures quoted are per full-time equivalent. I'm not sure that gives us the picture of sickness absence in the organisation, and I wondered if it was possible to see a sort of printout of numbers of days taken at one time. So is it a lot of people taking the day off, or is there a lot of long-term sickness? And I wondered if that information was available. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCraw, do you have that information, or?
I don't think so. I think it could be broken down into absolute numbers. The full-time equivalent measure is used universally simply because it gives you a broad measure. If you start to break things down into individual people, there's a difference between somebody working part-time and full-time, and you could end up with skewed data. A breakdown of fact details, I'm sure, is available from officers, and we can ask those if they can supply it. I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm interested, Councillor Saw, you talked about the light touch neighbourhood plan. I can't immediately see it in the report here. Forgive me if I've missed it in the report, but I'm interested to know, anyway, how long that pilot is running for, and have we got any data on how many, I think you might have mentioned it, forgive me if I missed it, but how many parishes or towns might have expressed an interest in it at all?
Yes, I can, because the Director of Planning gave us a presentation on this at the joint cabinet briefing, and I am quickly looking at this light touch. Something like 20 or 21. Oh, thank you.
Councillor McCraw, do you have...
I might be able
answer
to
at your
help a little
fingertips?
bit. It's a floated idea from
Yes.
central government.
Actively working on one or in dialogue about creating one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. About 12 councils, but interested, but will not progress until the detail has been confirmed, is another 4. So the team has done, I think, an excellent job of explaining why parish councils who haven't embarked on a neighbourhood plan might want to take this initiative forward. Yeah, there's about 12 actively working on one or creating. But we would like a little more clarity on how it's going to be used how it can be used by councils and how it's going to be regarded by national government.
Certainly, Councillor Barker, the clarity issue is quite key here, but until we know a lot more, then it's very difficult to make any comment further on that. And also, the other thing that we need clarity on is the funding for neighbourhood plans generally going forward, because at the moment it's only a one-year funding programme up until the end of March. And that was only made available from July. It took 3 months from the end of the last financial year for this current year's funding programme to be allocated. So there's a lot of uncertainty over neighbourhood plans at the moment. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so I think if there are no more questions, then Councillor McCraw, did you want to summarise at all before we move on?
There is a final slide, the last
Yes.
page of this report, which just describes the performance report journey, what we've been trying to present, collating the information from the different directorates and portfolios to present this report in this format. So in the first quarter, we developed the 3 sections: achievements, direction of travel, future plans. We've added in a series of KPIs. Second report, we're including some KPIs for statutory targets. We're hoping to reduce the number of slides, I should say, but that's a difficult matter. I'd like, by the way, at this point to pay tribute to Joe Hobbs, who's been responsible for driving this work forward. And yeah, we have spent a lot of time discussing the presentation of it. The next quarter will see additional KPIs with associated targets and statuses. The point about KPIs is you have to have build up a database to be able to present something you can measure against. And you can't do that from scratch. You have to be measuring consistently to actually produce the figures in the first place. And finally, in in quarter 4, for the end of the year and the full cycle, we'll be presenting an additional selection of those and the same statuses. There's also a system called Pentana, which is a configuration that allows the directorate to produce these reports. And this going forward is the format of presentation that I'd like to bring to Council and Cabinet, rather particularly to Cabinet, because I'm hoping it'll make it understandable why and how we measure performance. And the fact is that the key behind all of this is section 1, those 21 outcomes. Actually, I think there's 22. I counted an extra one the other day. But those outcomes, that's what we're based upon. We're looking for these specific results, outcomes. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. So that report is for noting only. And moving on then, item 11 is exclusion of the public, and that it does include the press. So to consider whether, pursuant to Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public should be excluded from the meeting for the business specified below on the grounds that if the public were present during this item, it is likely that there would be the disclosure to them of exempt information as indicated against the item. The author of the report proposed to be considered in Part 2 of the agenda is satisfied that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. May I have a proposer? Councillor Saul. May I have a seconder? Councillor Helen Davis. And now we'll have a vote. Sorry? Oh, show of hands. We'll do a vote by show of hands. Thank you. So that's unanimous, and we'll now close. We'll now close. Are we into closed session yet? No? Not yet. No. We will now be going into closed session, having conducted that vote, and conduct the rest of the business after we're in closed session.